Welcome to HOA Revenge Stories, your home for the best tales of homeowner justice. Welcome to today's story titled, HOA Built an Illegal Warehouse on My Ranch. Will I Risk Everything to Take Them to Court? So the story starts with the gentle morning breeze. The question isn't whether they built it. You can see it from my south ridge plain as day. It's a 5,000 square foot beige metal tumor. It glints in the morning sun, a monument to arrogance. It sits on a 2-acre concrete slab that has poisoned a patch of land my grandfather used to call the Madrone Stand, after the beautiful red-barked trees that once grew there. The question isn't whether it's illegal. My deed is ironclad. The H.O.A. stead has been 500 acres, give or take, since my great-grandfather put his name to paper in 1888. That warehouse is 50 yards on my side of the survey line. No, the question that's sitting on my chest like a sack of feed is the one my lawyer Sarah asked me last night, her voice tired over the phone. "Art," she said, "the judge set the trial date. Their lawyers are going to bury us in motions. They're filing for another continuance. Art, are you sure you want to see this through? They can drag this out for years. You know what that means." I knew. It means risking everything. It means the ranch. My name is Arthur H.O.A. I am the last H.O.A. on this land. I'm a rancher, but I'm not the kind you see in movies. I don't have 1,000 head of cattle. I raise a specialty breed of heritage shorthorns, the kind that take longer to mature but are worth it. This ranch isn't a business. Not really. It's a trust. My grandfather left it to me with one piece of advice, whispered through the haze of medication in a hospital room. Don't let 'em chip away at it, Artie. The land is all there is. Don't let them take a piece. And here I am, letting them. The them in question is the Whispering Pines Community Association. They're new. 3 years ago, a developer from Scottsdale bought the 200 acres bordering my south fence. He bulldozed the mesquite and prickly pear and put up a monument to beige stucco. McMansions on 10th-acre lots, all with identical, drought-resistant, desert-scape lawns. I didn't mind them at first. More neighbors. Fine. Then the letters started. A polite notice of nuisance about the unpleasant agricultural odors. A complaint about the dust from my truck on the access road. A certified letter demanding I move my bull, Samson, to a different pasture because his bellowing was disturbing the peace. I ignored them. I'm not in their HOA. My ranch is my own. Then 6 months ago, I was mending the fence line on the back 40. It's a part of the ranch I don't visit often. It's rough country, all arroyos and rock. But as I was stretching wire, I heard it. Not the distant ring of hammers from whispering pines, but the deep diesel growl of an earth mover, and it was close. I followed the sound, pushing through the brush. And then, the trees just stopped. They had been cleared. A huge, raw patch of red earth, and in the middle of it, a construction crew was pouring a concrete foundation. I yelled. I'm not a yelling man, but I yelled, "What in the hell are you doing on my property?" A man in a hard hat, clipboard in hand, walked over. He looked annoyed. "This is Whispering Pines Common Area, Pops. We're putting up the community storage facility." "The hell it is. The line is at the ridge. You're 100 yards on my side of the survey line." He tapped his clipboard. "Permits right here, surveyed and signed. You got a problem? You talk to the HOA president, Brenda Milligan." Oh, Brenda. I knew Brenda. She'd driven her golf cart up my road once to tell me my mailbox wasn't up to community standards. I found her at the Whispering Pines clubhouse. She was not receptive. "Mr. H.O.A.," she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness, "we are operating on a revised county survey. That old line of yours is, well, ambiguous." "There's nothing ambiguous about it, Brenda. I have the deed. I have the 1888 survey maps." Maps, she said, with a little laugh, as if I'd brought up ancient voodoo. Mr. Holloway, we've already invested $50,000 in the foundation. It's just a couple of acres of, well, scrubland. Be reasonable. She then had the gall to offer me to buy the 2 acres from me for $5,000. This is not a boundary dispute, I told her, my voice low. This is trespassing and theft. You have 24 hours to get your equipment off my land. She smiled. It was the smile of a person who has never been told no and meant it. She said, I don't think so. You feel free to talk to our lawyers. So I did. Or I found my own. Sarah Jenkins. She's young, smart, and just opened her own office in town. She's hungry, and she hates bullies. She's right about one thing, Art, she said, looking at the papers I'd given her. They have lawyers. The big, expensive kind from Phoenix. The kind that charges $1,000 an hour. But I'm right, I insisted. Being right is only half the battle, she'd warned me. And it's the cheap half. They know you're not a development corporation. They know you're one man. Their strategy is simple. They're going to bankrupt you. They'll file motions, counterclaims, appeals. They'll depose you for days. They will lose paperwork. They will drag this out until you are so broke and so tired that you have to sell the ranch just to pay your legal bills. And when you sell, they will be the ones to buy it. That's the risk. That's the everything. We filed an injunction. The construction stopped, but the half-built warehouse still sits there, a steel skeleton in the moonlight. And Sarah was right. The legal battle began. First came the deposition. I had to sit in a sterile conference room in Phoenix for 2 days. Their lawyer, a man with a $5,000 suit and a shark smile, didn't ask about the land. He asked about my finances. Mr. Holloway, is it true you only sold 40 head of cattle last year? What would you say your profit margin is? Is this ranch, would you call it, viable? It's my home, I said, my knuckles white on the table. A home you're willing to mortgage. We've seen the lien you took out to pay for Ms. Jenkins' services. Risky, wouldn't you say? Borrowing against your primary asset? I had to sell a prize bull to pay the first retainer. I had to skip repairs on my tractor. The spring rains were coming and my main barn roof leaked, but the roofer's bill would have to wait. Then came the countersuit. It was delivered by a smug process server. The Whispering Pines Homeowner Association was suing me for public nuisance. My agricultural odors were a health hazard. My unsightly barbed wire fencing was lowering their property values. My bull, Samson, was a clear and present danger and acoustical terrorism. They were suing me for $2 million. It was a joke, a legal fiction, but it had a real chilling effect. With an active lawsuit against the property, I couldn't sell a parcel even if I wanted to. I couldn't get another loan. They were cutting me off at the knees, just as Sarah predicted. I was in the feed store, a place I've gone my whole life, and I saw old friends. They'd look away, not because they were angry with me, but because they were embarrassed for me. They knew I was in a fight I couldn't win. They knew the HOA had a litigation fund, fed by the dues of 100 wealthy homeowners. I had a checking account that was breathing fumes. Last night, after Sarah's call, I didn't sleep. I walked out of the house at 3 a.m. The moon was full. I walked the 2 miles to the back 40. I stood at the edge of the clearing and looked at that thing. That beige steel insult. I saw my grandfather's face. Don't let him chip away at it, Artie. I wasn't just fighting for 2 acres of scrubland. I was fighting for the 498 acres behind me. I was fighting for the right to exist, for the idea that a man's home is his own, and that a legacy matters more than a community storage facility. But I was so tired. The financial drain was one thing. The emotional one was worse. It was a constant low-grade fever of anxiety. Every phone call, every truck on the road made me jump. I was short-tempered. I was drinking more whiskey than was good for me. I was failing. I put my hand on one of the steel beams. It was cold, dead. The concrete under my boots felt like a gravestone. I could give up. I could sign the papers. I could let them have the 2 acres. They'd drop their nuisance suit. I'd be able to fix my roof. I could sleep. I'd be letting my grandfather down. But maybe he'd understand. Maybe he wouldn't want me to lose the whole ranch over a tiny piece of it. I walked back to the house, the sun just starting to tint the eastern sky pink. My boots were covered in red dust. I sat at my grandfather's old roll-top desk, the one he used to do his ledgers. I was going to call Sarah and tell her to see what kind of settlement we could get. I opened the top drawer to find a pen, and my hand brushed against a small, leather-bound book. It was one of his journals. I'd read them before, mostly. Dry accounts of rainfall, cattle prices, fence mending. I opened this one, dated 1958. I flipped through the pages. July 10. Dug new post holes for the south pasture. August 4. Rain, 2 inches. God is good. August 21. That new county surveyor Henderson is a fool and possibly drunk. Tried to tell me my SE boundary marker was at the Aurora. Had to spend all afternoon dragging him out to the Madrone stand. Showed him the original 1888 survey stone. He huffed, but he couldn't deny it. He marked it in his book. I put a new steel post in the ground right next to the stone just in case the next fool can't see what's in front of him. I stopped. I read it again. A steel post next to the 1888 stone. I've used the survey maps. I've used the county records. But I'd never seen the original stone marker. In all the new surveys and GPS mapping, everyone had just followed the lines on the paper, lines that had been redrawn and photocopied 1,000 times. I grabbed my phone. It was 5:30 a.m. "Sarah," I said, not even bothering with hello. "Wake up. I know how to win this. And bring a shovel. 2, if you have them." An hour later, Sarah's truck bounced up my road. She looked exhausted, coffee in hand, mud on her boots. "Art, what is this? Did you find something?" "My grandfather did," I said. We drove my old ranch truck as far as we could. Then we hiked. I had the journal. We went to the corner of the property, near the warehouse. The spot was overgrown with greasewood and prickly pear. It was rough, broken ground. "The journal said Madrone stand," I said, looking around. "The stand was gone, cleared for the warehouse. They took the trees, Sarah, but they wouldn't have taken the marker. They wouldn't have even looked for it. They just followed their revised map. So where do we dig?" "The journal says next to the stone. Their surveyor, Henderson, was at the Aurora. The Aurora is over there." I pointed about 30 yards west of the warehouse fence. "But my grandfather said he dragged him here. He wouldn't have put the post on the ridge. He'd have put it at the corner, the real corner." We started digging. It was back-breaking work. The ground was hard clay, studded with rocks. We dug for an hour. Nothing. "Art," Sarah said, leaning on her shovel. "This is a long shot. Even if we find it, their lawyers will say we planted it. Just a little longer." Just then, a white SUV from the HOA pulled up the construction road. A private security guard, the one they hired to watch the asset, got out. "Ma'am, sir, you can't be here. This is private property." "This is my property," I growled, covered in sweat and dirt. "You're the one trespassing." He saw our shovels. He got on his radio. "Yeah, it's that rancher guy. He's out here with his lawyer. They're digging holes." We kept digging. And then, thud. My shovel hit something that wasn't a rock. It was a dull, metallic sound. "Sarah," I said, my heart hammering. We both got on our knees and dug with our hands. We cleared the dirt. It was a 4-inch steel post, rusted deep red but solid as the day my grandfather sank it. "Look," Sarah said, her voice a whisper. She was clearing the dirt next to it, and there it was, a rough granite stone, half buried. On the top, crude but clear, were chisel marks. H. Stead, 1888. It was 50 yards inside the fence line the HOA had built. The warehouse wasn't just on my land, it was deep on my land. "Oh my God," Sarah said. She wasn't talking to me, she was pulling out her phone. "Art, stand right by it." She took a photo, then another, then a video, panning from the marker to the fence to the warehouse in the background. "GPS is on," she said, tapping her screen. "Coordinates locked." A second car was speeding up the road. A luxury sedan. The HOA's lawyer, in his $5,000 suit, got out. Brenda Milligan was in the passenger seat. She looked furious. "What is the meaning of this? This is harassment. I'm having you both arrested." Sarah Jenkins, all 5'3" of her, covered in mud, walked right up to the lawyer. She didn't say a word. She just held up her phone, showing him the picture. I watched the lawyer's face. It was a beautiful thing. The arrogance just evaporated. He looked at the phone. He looked at the marker. He looked at the warehouse. He turned to Brenda. Is this what I think it is?" she stammered. The lawyer just closed his eyes. He let out a long, slow breath. Then he opened them and looked at Sarah. "Miss Jenkins," he said, his voice now a flat monotone, "I believe we can dispense with the trial." "You're damn right you can," Sarah said, finding her fire. "This is no longer a boundary dispute, counsel. This is criminal trespass, destruction of property, and given your revised survey, I'd say it's conspiracy to commit fraud. We'll be filing an amended complaint by noon." Brenda turned a shade of beige that matched her warehouse. The rest, as they say, was just paperwork. The HOA's countersuit was dropped. Our injunction became a court order. The judge, who had been so patient, was furious. He seen the journal, the photos of the marker. He called the HOA's revised survey what it was, a self-serving fiction. He ordered the Whispering Pines HOA to remove the warehouse at their expense. Every beam, every wire, every square inch of concrete. He ordered them to pay for a full environmental remediation of the land. They had to bring in new topsoil and plant native madrone trees at their expense. He ordered them to pay my legal fees, all of them. And then, in a beautiful final twist, he found their nuisance suit to be frivolous and vindictive, and awarded me $500,000 in punitive damages. Brenda Milligan was voted out as president a week later. I heard she put her house on the market. It's 6 months later. I'm sitting on my porch. I can hear the sound of heavy machinery. But it's not construction. It's deconstruction. They're cutting the steel beams apart. They're jackhammering the concrete. It'll take years for the scar on the land to heal, but it will. The land endures. Sarah stopped by. She brought a bottle of whiskey, the good stuff. "To the H.O.A. Stead, 1888, she said, raising a glass. "To my grandfather," I said, clinking her glass. We sat and watched the sunset. I've got a new roof on my barn, My tractor is running like a top, and Samson, my bull, is bellowing his lungs out over in the south pasture, right at the Whispering Pines property line. I risked everything. I faced financial ruin, and I faced the loss of my family's legacy. But as I sit here, listening to the sound of my enemy's failure being torn down, I know the answer to the question. You risk everything, or you have nothing left to risk.